It's that time again. It's March 25th, a Friday. So that was the week. I missed it last week, Keith, but I think you did. What did you do last week? Did you do your own broadcast?
I didn't do one, Andrew. It was so impossible to cobble together a
A
show.
replica.
I'll tell you what happened is my wife got back from a visit to South Africa, and a friend of mine, Martin, apparently told her that when it's not you and me, it's really boring. And so she told me that just before I was about to do the solo version of the show. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do it then. So, Martin, if you're watching, it's your fault.
Yeah, well, thank you, Martin, because Keith is boring without me. Okay, so Keith, an interesting lead piece today, which to me smells rather fishy, but you can explain it. About a Worldcoin put together by three of the most controversial people in Silicon Valley: Mark Andreessen, Vinod Khosla, and Sam Altman, who perhaps when they team up, the rest of the world should be particularly fearful. They're scarily smart on their own, but the three of them together, fearsome and fearful. What are they up to, these three?
Well, you remember some while ago, Andrew, we had a show called Sam Altman is Super Smart. Who knew?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is the next chapter of the story that we talked about then, which is Sam Altman has taken seriously the idea that you could provide everyone in the world with a monthly income.
Yeah, you had this idea years ago. You were trying to pitch it to me, right? I
I
mean, it's
did.
not particularly original.
I don't want to take any credit for that, but it is true that my idea was eerily close to what he's actually doing. The difference was that mine was an idea and he's actually doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, others. I remember pitching your idea or telling your idea to Albert Wenger, and he was intrigued, but he said he'd heard some other ideas like that too. So it's not particularly original, anyway.
Yeah, I don't. I think what's original is the plan to do it. So to get into the details, if you're going to give everyone on the planet monthly, in quotes, money,
Yeah,
then you're going to get scammed by people taking it more than once, right?
yeah,
So the first thing that they've done is they've built this sphere called the orb, which does a retina scan that translates to your smartphone after you've done it. And basically, you have to prove you are who you are prior to getting your monthly money.
yeah. Which, I mean, this is going to be the kind of thing which is easy to pick holes in because it's such an ambitious idea. But even that in itself is incredibly problematic. They're doing it to everyone in the world. What about people in China and Russia and even the Indians? This issue of identity in India and digital is incredibly controversial and complicated.
Yeah, and I think they recognize that. They've been doing field tests and been trying to get the wrinkles out.
Where they've been doing the field tests in Palo Alto.
All over the world, actually. They've got a fairly detailed, I link it in the newsletter, a very detailed field test report that shows the results.
Yeah.
And it works. I mean, it does work. That said,
when you say it works, you mean the bio thing?
The bio thing works. However, you have to have
so they could partner with Clear or something on this. I mean, they're already doing that.
Except it's global, and and you have to have a smartphone. Once you've taken the reading with the scanner, then it has to work on a smartphone, and everyone has to have a smartphone. Which, of course, there are probably 3 billion people in the world who have a smartphone, but there's 4 billion who don't.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of issues. The second
excuse, I know I keep on interrupting. That seems to me the least of their problems because eventually everyone probably will have a smartphone. But anyway, go on.
Eventually, and if you're giving people this currency and it's basically free to give and worth something, they could even afford to give everyone enough of this currency to buy themselves a smartphone. I agree.
Even be sponsored by Apple and Google.
Yeah, well, it should be. They should be all over it. I actually think it's the biggest idea anyone has ever had as a use of technology. It's bigger than Apple.
Yeah, but let me be cynical for a moment. And as you know, I'm naturally a cynical person. It sounds to me like Sam Altman and Mark Andreessen and Vinod Khosla have got together and said, "Oh, we're going to create a currency. So we're all going to throw in X million, and then we're going to value it at X billion, and it's going to be really cool." I mean, it seems. I mean, sure, it's a big idea, but
Yeah.
is it in any way realizable? And how do they? I don't. What I don't understand is how can they come up with such an absurd valuation on just an idea by three wealthy guys?
Well, the valuation is just a function of how much they want to own of it. So they put in $100 million at a 3 billion valuation.
Which is a lot. I guess is a lot of money. So they're putting their money where their mouths are.
It's a lot of money, and relatively, it's not a lot of money, because if you're going to do this to everyone in the world, I suspect that they announced that they're going to eventually get to 50,000 of these retina readers a year manufactured. Well, 50,000 a year for 7 billion people isn't enough. So there is, I was saying the editorial, there is a bit of a gap between the audacity of the vision and the reality of the
So you
plan.
need a bit of extra hardware. It doesn't work with just a cell phone.
Only after you've done the reading, then it does. But the reading has to be done with a special piece
Well, you
of
could
hardware.
have a reader in the village or in the town square or in the local CVS or something. So that's
Yeah. When you get your picture taken now for a passport, it's doing biometrics on your retina.
yeah. So
So it's doable. It's totally doable. But they need more money than they've raised, and they need to be a bit more ambitious, which is a surprising thing to say for such an ambitious idea. But the execution plan isn't ambitious enough, I would say, compared to how big the idea is. And these people, you said it's cynical, but I don't think what you said is cynical. That's the reality of venture investing. In venture investing, you buy something cheap because you believe it's going to become more expensive, and that's just what you do. And
yeah, but they're selling it to themselves. Usually, the venture model is you get a couple of entrepreneurs with an idea, and they get funded by a VC.
but
You've
that's
got
what's happened here.
Altman and Andreessen, and
No, that is what happened. Altman had the company already,
oh, I see.
with a co-founder, and they've invested in it.
Okay, so it's Andreessen and Khosla investing in Altman's venture,
It is.
and Altman is also investing.
Correct. He's already invested as well in the past, and his co-founder is a former physicist who is the CEO of the thing. So honestly, I think you applaud the ambition. One should be skeptical about the execution plan because it doesn't seem big enough. But imagine that you could get every merchant in the world to accept Worldcoin in payment for stuff. Worldcoin by default would become valuable just because of that.
But we come here's the $1 trillion question is, it's the same old question with crypto in every sense, is where's the value coming from? And this idea of giving money out for free is classic Silicon Valley marketing.
Well, I think you've got to distinguish between value and goods. Value, as we both know, Andrew, from our education, is derived from human labor, only from human labor. And if in the future there is no human labor, there will be no value, but there will be goods. And that suggests that price will tend towards zero.
Well, you say that, but it's more complicated. You and I are laboring on this. It doesn't have any value. So I don't know what you mean by value.
Moving rapidly along so we don't get into a value conversation. That said, there are goods. So if a butcher will give you a piece of meat for 20 world coins,
yeah,
and he can then spend those 20 world coins on paying his rent.
Okay, I get that. So, but what's the point? You said it's guaranteed minimum income. So basically, what Sam Altman is trying to do is create a global minimum income schemes to give everyone enough to live on.
Yes, and I think by the way, remember that Sam's other job is AI.
OpenAI, right?
Right.
That's what I was wondering. What he's doing at OpenAI. So, but leave that.
They're related. They're related. Why do you think he wants to deliver income to people? Because he's going to take it away from them with his other job.
Oh. But but who is? So let's say Sam gets his way, and everyone in the world gets $100 a month from Sam's world coin thing. Where does that come from? Who's paying for that?
It basically comes from nowhere, just like dollars come from nowhere.
Yeah, but dollars are supported by a government, by a central bank, and they exist in a country.
Well, what's bigger than a government?
Really, just turn it. Yeah, but
A,
no
a,
one's bought
a,
in, so it's
it's
like me saying, "Well,
basically
I'm going to create a coin for the universe," and there are a zillion trillion people in the universe, so it's worth a zillion trillion. This is just children's story,
no one's saying that. It's worth nothing originally, so
right?
we'd agree on that, right? It's worth nothing.
Yeah, no, yeah, right,
Just like the dollar would be worth nothing if we couldn't spend it.
right.
So
Or if right, if you didn't trust, if you gave me $1 and you didn't take it because you didn't trust it had any
right,
value.
so
So
it's
go on.
worth nothing. So we agree on that. Now, if you give me one and I can spend it at my local butcher, you'll have to admit it's now worth something because the butcher just gave me goods in exchange for it.
Yeah. So, but who's going to convince the
So
butcher to take the money?
well, that's the whole effort. That's why they're raising money. They're trying to persuade the world that this is a trustworthy currency that they can take. And if they can succeed in giving it to enough people, and the butcher wants business from those people, there's a good chance a lot of butchers will take it.
Yeah, but
And
you're missing that. There's a logical piece here missing. Let's say they raise $1 trillion. How are they going to convince the butcher that their world coin has value?
by the fact that it will trade on an exchange, and the butcher can see with his eyes that if he takes this coin, he can sell it right now for any currency he wants at a certain ratio.
But is this? I mean, this sounds to me like a Ponzi scheme, but it's essentially the same Ponzi scheme as all crypto schemes.
It's Ponzi scheme is like a multi-layered marketing scheme. It isn't one of those, but it is an attempt to own the store of value for the world. So that's not necessarily a Ponzi scheme. It's either nothing because it won't work, or it's real because people do it. In which case, it's real. So the thing about money is it only becomes real through use.
Right.
All money.
How much attention? I missed this because I was away last week. Has this got a lot of attention? I didn't see it in Tech Meme. People taking this seriously, or is it just another kind of stupid harebrained scheme?
It's being taken seriously.
By who?
TechCrunch was where I saw the article originally.
I haven't seen it in the New York Times or the FT or any of the serious financial press.
Let's just check where the original.
I mean, TechCrunch, Keith, you know this better than anyone. TechCrunch is hardly serious journalism.
No, here it is. I'll show you it. It was the information that first talked about it. This is the information, and that Kate Clark and Berber Jin are really serious journalists.
We're not the date. I thought it was. Maybe I got the date wrong. It's not March 25th. It's April 1st.
No, it isn't. That's the day I get my doctorate, and so I know it isn't.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder what they're going to announce on April 1st. These guys.
There is a fear deep in me that the whole idea of me getting an honorary doctorate is fake, and it's an April Fool's joke.
Maybe it's all orchestrated by Kostler, Horowitz, and Andreessen.
Could easily be. But anyway, it was the information. So it is credible. And then I also publish.
Well, credible, but I mean, I'm sure they're doing it. It's not a lie. But I mean, can we really take this with any degree of seriousness?
What would stop you from believing you should take it seriously? Because logically, it could work, right?
It could work, I guess, if they acquire global bank status. And I don't know how they do that.
Well, okay.
And I guess it could work in the same way as Bitcoin or Ethereum works.
Exactly that. And in that world, you only need a wallet. You don't need a bank. You have to have a wallet with Worldcoin. I do. We can then do business together, but there doesn't need to be a bank in the middle between us. And Worldcoin doesn't need to become a
Is
bank.
it? But it's cryptocurrency. It's designed as a peer-to-peer blockchain-based currency. Is that right?
Correct.
So it's just another coin.
It's another coin, but it's got unlike, say, a coin whose goal it is to get paid for file storage. This is a coin whose goal it is to get paid for feeding the world. And it's kind of Bob Geldof on
Right, but
steroids.
it's ironic that
And
this is being designed to feed the world. You have to have a smartphone. So the 4 or 5 million people who don't have
yeah,
smartphones are likely to be the people who are hungriest. You and I don't need
yeah.
basically.
So their rollout plan is going to be critical because they've got to find a way to fulfill their vision, and fairly quickly, I would say. Otherwise, it will end up looking like a big idea that doesn't go anywhere, like Libra was, the Facebook token, which is now closed down, by the way.
At least Libra was. I mean, the problem with Libra wasn't the idea. The problem with Libra was Facebook. No one trusted Facebook. So I guess a lot of
Yeah,
this stuff depends on trust.
yeah,
Andreessen, Koestler, and Altman, I guess, are more trustworthy than the Facebook people.
yeah. Obviously that's opinion. Different people see that
Well,
differently. But the real trust will come from usage.
And I don't understand. The other thing I don't understand is why and how this dovetails with Altman's OpenAI.
Well, I think OpenAI believes that a lot of jobs, even white collar jobs in quotes, but certainly blue collar, but a lot of white collar as well, will be replaced by computer code.
Yeah, but that's true of every, thousands of AI startups. So what?
Well, so that what that means is that unless you don't care, you're going to be responsible for people being out of work.
Yeah, but that's really long term, and you don't. But nobody believes that. I mean, there's going to always be new. I mean, it's going to take generations if that happens.
It's going to take a long time, but so is Worldcoin. So they're going to correlate to some extent. But if he's trying to answer the question in a world of abundance driven by automation, how do people get food and housing and clothing and health and education? It's not a bad question to ask. And
yeah, I mean, is it possible, Keith, putting on your skeptic's cap for a moment, is it possible that this is just an incredibly ludicrous manifestation of Silicon Valley people drinking their own Kool-Aid?
It's possible. That's definitely possible. That's all about execution, because everything looks crazy until it isn't. And
yeah. But if you use that argument, then anything's possible. I can say, well, I'm gonna raise money to to conquer the universe in 20 seconds because I think I could have technology that could do that. I mean, it's possible.
Well, the difference between that and this is that you can already see all the technology that could make this happen, but no one's put it together.
I still don't understand the economics, though. To me, it is a giant Ponzi scheme because I don't really understand why a merchant. I don't understand, and I don't understand what their business model is. How are they going to make money?
I'll make one last effort to explain it, and then
okay, and then we move on. What's the revenue scheme here for the Worldcoin?
The revenue is that they've reserved some percentage of the Worldcoins in treasury for the founders, the investors, and the running of the business. So I think it's 20%, but don't quote me on that. It might be less. I've read 20% in various places, so it's probably 20%. Mm-hmm. And if the value of that 20% is correlated to Worldcoin becoming a real thing. If it doesn't, it's worthless. Mm. So they're highly incented to make it work, because then their store of 20% will become valuable. And they can pay.
It is. I mean, you heard it here, everyone. This is a massive Ponzi scheme, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. So let's move on, Keith. What else is happening except for Worldcoin?
Well, in the editorial, I focused on a kind of a quirky issue known as Prorata, but it's also tweet of the week. So the question is, do you want to go to that now, which is really the second biggest story, or do you want to wait?
Don't you have anything about the European attempt to bring all big tech down? You haven't got that.
I didn't cover that this week, but we can talk about it.
Let's talk about Prorata then. I don't understand what that is.
So let's go to tweet of the week and let's highlight. She's known as Beeza Clarkson, Elizabeth Clarkson, who is at Sapphire Ventures, which is the venture fund associated with SAP, the software company. She says, to reserve or not to reserve, that is the question. And a question we are asked frequently by venture capitalists. Her fund invests in venture capital funds. They're known as a limited partner or an LP. So she's saying, the people she invests in are saying, should we invest all of our money into companies, or should we keep some of it back just in case some of the companies take off?
Yeah.
We need to put more money in to maintain our share. That's the question. And it's a very, very long thread. I put a link to the thread here where she does that thing where you do lots of tweets together and it makes a full set of thoughts.
Yeah.
And it got massive reaction because it's a controversial issue within venture capital.
Right.
And the reason I highlighted it is pro rata rights are the asset class that my startup Signal Round.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Because your supply, you give investors access to more capital to invest more in their companies, right?
Yeah, we let them invest their main fund in their first investments.
Yeah.
They don't have to reserve any for the second stage. And from the Series B onwards, we will supply capital to them to maintain their shareholding in not in all of their companies, just in the ones that take off very fast and go very quick. And so lots of venture capitalists and angels do watch this show, so this is a subject they'll care about. And I think the conclusion drawn by Beeza Clarkson is probably that companies should not reserve too much of their money for follow-on. They should mostly go with their skill set, which is picking companies early and getting in early.
Yeah.
And they should be happy with the upside that gives. But that they should reserve a little bit. And then different people weighed in and made different points of view. Now, if we were doing a startup and we had an investor, what would we want? Would we want our first investors to keep investing? Or wouldn't we really care if we could get Andreessen and Koestler in the next round? Would we care if, let's say, Cowboy Ventures didn't put more money in? That's the issue. And it's kind of not an issue most normal people care about, but it's highly cared about within venture capital. If I tell you that in the 2021 set of unicorns, and if you just look at the B round, the C round, and the G round of those unicorns, $13 billion of pro rata would have been needed for the A round investors to keep their 10% or so at the B, the C, and the D. 13 billion. And if they would have put that 13 billion in today, it would be worth 80 billion.
Yeah, but then there's lots of other occasions where they could have put it in and lost the money, right?
Well, that's
that's not an argument, because there's so many other.
Yeah, but
what else they could have done something else with the money.
Yeah, but they don't have the money to do it anyway, so it's a moot point. But the seed investors just don't have that amount of money to do it anyway, so they can't.
Right.
If they did, it would have multiplied about 6 times already. And if you go out 5 years, it multiplies about 20 times as the companies grow over a longer period of time. So it's basically like finding an oil well full of oil and trying to figure out a way to get it out of the ground. If you could invest in the pro rata rights and supply the capital, and only do so in the B round companies that are growing very fast, so you kind of are not putting it into the slower, risky companies, then you would do very well.
What about Apple and Spotify, Keith? What's happening with them? You have a section. Interesting piece.
I kind of bundle this together into a single section, but actually it's 2 or 3 different points. The first is amazing to me. We can now put our driver's license on our phone and it will be accepted as a real ID at the airport.
I have to admit, I always thought you could do that. I mean, I guess I didn't think you could do that, but I don't find this particularly radical. I mean, we can put our tickets on our phones.
Yeah. So it's an obvious next step. How long before you can put your passport on your phone? I think that probably will happen as well. In fact, you can already do electronic entry in San Francisco, where
right. So this is not that big a deal.
Yeah, but I thought it because it's not that big a deal and it's only just happening. It is a reminder to us that some really ordinary things which could be digitized haven't yet been. So there's a lot of opportunity to still innovate and make our lives better.
Yeah.
The second one is that Google shot a gun across the bows of Apple by agreeing to a deal with Spotify that the Spotify app in the Play Store will be allowed to bill subscriptions directly instead of going through the Google payment system, thus getting rid of the Google share of the spoils, or at least reducing it. And this story here, which is again from the information, is making the point that Apple will be under pressure to follow suit and also agree to take less. By the way, it's interesting. This is kind of interesting, but Apple removed the ability this week for you to subscribe to Apple TV Plus through Google and Amazon, so as to stop paying Google and Amazon a share of the subscription fee.
Yeah. Well, this is the new superpower war, right?
Yeah. And then the third one is probably closer to our heart, which is that Spotify, which already has a Clubhouse-like capability, is going to build it into its main app and start supporting our show could be live on Spotify with an
Clubhouse
audience.
is in decline, though, isn't it? It's disappeared. We never talk about Clubhouse anymore.
I think live audio is on the rise, but it's now spread across a lot of different platforms and no longer just.
I mean, is this live or this is live audio or this is live video?
Both, obviously. We could stream this as pure audio as well.
But Restream is not like Clubhouse. It doesn't have those features of the live audio.
We don't have the audience. We have it's a one-way broadcast.
No, but even if we did have the audience, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Not on Restream, no.
So we would have to do it on Twitter.
When I said we don't have the audience, I didn't mean we don't have an audience.
Yeah.
What I meant to suggest was the
that was a little Freudian error.
By the way, there is I just noticed a little red button. Somebody's put something in the chat. Have they, or am I?
Yeah, lots of people. I try not to read what people say, but a lot of people are saying stuff. Yeah, well, that's good. So this is the real world, Keith, though. This is not children's stories with Worldcoin.
This is the real world. You are absolutely right. Indeed, you are.
And then, as always in the real world, my favorite bit of the real world is, well, we've done Tweet of the Week. We did that at the beginning. What about Startup of the Week?
Startup of the Week.
Don't say it's Apple or Google.
No, actually, it's a real startup this week. It's called Tome, Tome.
Yeah.
It's actually really good. It's rethinking presentations. Looks like the site might be down. Oh no, there it is. So basically, the company Tome has created an authoring tool that lets you do a mobile-friendly story, like a presentation, but they call it a story, that lets you send whatever it is you create. Here's an example. If I zoom in, this is a tome. So it's kind of like a Instagram story or a Facebook story, but as a narrative sharing tool.
So it's not a replacement for PowerPoint. It's
It kind
more
of
of a
is. It is. It's a replacement for PowerPoint that's more mobile friendly and probably
younger.
easier to do. And they Tome raised money this week,
Yeah.
$32 million from Greylock and Cotu.
Wow.
Cotu you mentioned before. And I actually looked at the app and I thought it looks very innovative. I think I want to use it. I've applied
Yeah,
to
well,
go.
I mean, PowerPoint has to be vulnerable. It's been around so long, and it's sort of such a cumbersome, archaic bit of technology. So,
Yep, exactly right.
good. Well, a real startup with a real business model. I assume you have to pay to use it.
You probably do. I think there'll be a
I mean, there's
free.
a free and a value added.
Exactly right.
Good. Well, so there are real businesses out there, real entrepreneurs, and not just, I don't know what you would call Altman.
Altman. Altman. You'd call him super smart. Who knew?
Yeah, too smart for his own good. Well, that was the week, Keith, for March 25th. What are your plans for April 1st? You're getting your PhD from Kent University?
I am. I'm flying on Monday, and I will be in Europe all next week. And all that means, dear readers and viewers, is there will not be a show next week because, unlike Andrew, I'm not going to try to do it while I'm on the road. So we're going to miss a week.
Well, if Keith getting his PhD on April 1st, I don't know what it says, but there still is some irony left in the world. And when you show up with your PhD, am I going to have to call you Dr. Keith?
I'm not going to be using the doctor designation. I think there's too many politically incorrect jokes that will come into my head if I'm ever called doctor.
Okay. Well, I will have more respect for you in a couple of weeks when you have your PhD. I will acknowledge that some of the things you say have some truth.
Very good.
Have a great couple of weeks, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.